This is NABE TV, brought to you by the Institute for Economic Competitiveness at the University of Central Florida.
Joining me is Bob Young. He's the chief economist for the American Farm Bureau Federation. And Bob, thanks so much for coming by and joining us here today at NABE. And let me start off with a little bit about the stimulus package and also the budget that's been proposed by the Obama administration. One of the things that has been mentioned is a target, I'm calling it, at entitlements. Basically, perhaps looking at cutting some of those out to the farm population and to help balance potential offsets, I should say, potential deficits. What's the feeling from the Farm Bureau Federation on this particular talk?
Well, I think if we're going to talk about entitlement reductions or reductions in entitlement spending, then, and as long as we're talking about it across the board and everybody's going to pay, then I think American farmers are willing to have conversations. I think where we get into some significant concerns is when you're going to decide to single us out and try to balance the budget on the back of American farmers. That tends to create quite a bit of concern, and also recognizing too that these spending programs that they're talking about that was part of the president's discussion, those only amount to about $5 billion a year. Okay, what are we going to do about the other $995 billion? They're just an awful lot of, again, I think we're willing to do our share, but let's make sure that we're talking about our share.
Well, there's plenty of pain to go around these days. What is the financial status of the American farmer? And we hear an awful lot about prices these days because we're paying them at the supermarket. How's that holding up in treating the farmers' economy?
Well, first off, I'd say that prices at the farm level have fallen significantly from where they were last summer. And so some of these notions that you get about significant increases in prices at the retail level and things of that nature, it ain't going in the farmer's pocket, I'll tell you that much for sure. For example, one of the things that the president proposed that we should put a cap on government support at farms that have sales in excess of $500,000. $500,000 sounds like a lot of money, and it is. But out of that $500,000, the farmer's going to spend $450,000 in input costs. So let's make sure we're comparing apples to apples here at the end of the day. In general, the farming sector is in pretty good financial shape. They did not go through the same kind of process that we did in subprime mortgages, for example. Farmers have always had to put solid balance sheets, solid business plans on the table, be able to talk about very reasonable cash flows with very reasonable sets of assumptions behind those. And our lending institutions have kind of made sure that they've held our feet to the fire, really since we had a very major farm financial collapse in the early 80s. And those lessons were learned and have not been forgotten. And so farmers have done a very good job of managing their debt as they move through this last round.
The farmers have the banking institutions been good to you as well?
Both. They've been both been paying very good attention. And so far, again, we tend to be more kind of local banks. As opposed to going to the city banks and things of that nature. They just don't talk to us. That's not who they lend to. So the most of the local banks and regional banks that we'll lend from or that we'll borrow from or have not been in that again in some of the debt swaps and things of that nature, and their balance sheets look very good. We also have access to the Farm Credit System, which is backed up by Farmer Mac, and they again are in very good financial position and very willing to talk to farmers. In fact, if I had to lend somewhere, if I had to pick a sector that I was going to lend to, I'd lend to agriculture first right now.
What kind of lends itself to a question about how many voices are being raised now? Everyone's got their hand up or hand out, as the case may be. Are the voices? Is your voice being heard at this point?
Well, we did have, again, understand that in the stimulus package, for example, there were some things in there that Farm Bureau, for example, had been working for quite a while. Better access to broadband, some improvements on some of the river systems, things of that nature. That those were things that were in the package that we had been actively seeking for quite a period of time. And so, to that sense, those kinds of voices are being heard. I think the question becomes, though, about some of the other provisions that now we're going to talk about as we start talking about how we pay for all this. That's where we're getting some significantly concerned at this point in time.
Well, Bob Young with the American Farm Bureau Federation, thank you so much for coming by and joining us today. And we'll have much more right here on NABE TV. You stay with us.